What if the scariest thing about Hereditary isn't the demon, it's that none of the characters ever had a choice? Think about what that means for a second. From the very first frame, Ari Aster is telling you exactly what kind of film this is. The camera pushes slowly into a dollhouse. Perfect. Miniature. Controlled. Then it dissolves into a real bedroom. Beyond it, a man walks in, moves through the space like a figure being placed, and then you realize we are watching a director who wants you to feel like a piece being moved on a board. And that's not an accident. That's for the entire film. Announced in its opening seconds, Hereditary is a movie about inheritance, but the things passed down to us before we're old enough to refuse them. Once you see it that way, it stops being a horror film, and becomes something far more unsettling. Here's what I think Hereditary is actually about. Not demons, not cults, not even death, though there's plenty of that. It's about what families do to each other without meaning to. The mental illness that moves through generations like a thread you can't see until it's already pulled tight around you. The grief that gets handed down because no one ever learned how to hold it properly. The roles we're assigned before we're even born. The good child, the difficult one, the sacrifice. And how we spend our whole lives either playing them or trying to escape them. Annie Graham is a miniature artist. She builds small, perfect replicas of traumatic moments in her life. Her childhood bedroom, her mother's hospital room, and later, and this one always gets me, the accident. She aestheticizes her own suffering. She puts it in a box, gives it walls and a roof, and calls it art. And that right there is the film's central image. Not Paimon, not the treehouse, but the miniature. The idea that we can contain our inherited pain if we're just precise enough about it. But the Grahams can't contain it. Nobody in this film can. And Aster spends 2 hours showing us why. Let's start with Annie's art, because I think it's the most underanalyzed element of this film. Annie builds miniatures for a living, gallery-ready dioramas, meticulous in their detail. But watch what she chooses to build. Early in the film, we see her recreating her mother's death, the hospital bed, the body, rendered in miniature with the same care you'd give a wedding centerpiece. Later on, she builds the family living room, the dinner table, and the car on the road at night. There's a psychiatric concept called working through, the idea that we process trauma by returning to it, reimagining it, giving it a new form. Annie does this literally. She miniaturizes her worst moments, makes them small enough to hold in her hands, small enough to put behind glass. But here's what the film understands that Annie doesn't. Making something small doesn't make it safe. It just means you're carrying it differently. And there's something else happening in the miniatures. Control. Annie's work is obsessively precise. Every detail placed exactly where she wants it. In a life where she has inherited her mother's mental illness, where she is watching her family fall apart, where grief keeps arriving before she's finished with the last round. The workshop is the one place where she decides what goes where nothing happens unless she makes it. Aster frames her workshop as a sanctuary and a trap at the same time. The light in there is warm, the rest of the house is cold. But the miniatures she's building are of her own disasters. She's chosen to spend her safe space recreating the moments that broke her. That's not processing, that's circling. The first time we see Charlie, she's at her grandmother Ellen's funeral, drawing in a notebook. She doesn't look sad. She looks like she's studying something. There's almost a clinical quality to Millie Shapiro's performance. Charlie observes the world around her like it's a system, and she's trying to decode it. She clicks her tongue, cuts the head off dead birds and keeps them, and she draws figures that look less like artwork and more like documentation. Charlie tells her mother early on,
she wanted me to be a boy.
Like she's reporting a weather condition. Annie dismisses it, changes the subject, but the film doesn't. It holds on to that detail. It pays off in the most brutal way imaginable. Because what we learn, slowly, then all at once, is that Charlie was never herself. She was a vessel. Ellen had been preparing her since birth as a host for Paimon, a male demon who requires a male host. Charlie, in the cult's logic, was always a placeholder, always temporary. And the film's cruelest irony is that Peter, oblivious, resentful, checked out Peter, is the one they actually wanted all along. The car scene, I'm not going to spoil it, because if you've seen it, you already know. And if you haven't, you should experience it without preparation. But what I will say is this. It's one of the most devastating sequences in modern horror. And it's not because of the gore, but because of what comes after it. Peter driving, not stopping, staring forward, the silence, and then the cut to the morning. Aster holds on to that morning for an extraordinarily long time. The mundane horror of a normal day arriving anyway. Charlie is gone. The world just keeps rotating. About halfway through the film, there's a dinner table scene. You probably remember it, and if you don't, here's a summary.
Release yourself.
Oh, release you mean?
Yeah, fine, release me. Just say it. Just fucking say it.
Don't you swear at me, you little shit! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Do you understand? All I do is worry and slave and defend you, and all I get back is that fucking face on your face! So full of disdain and resentment and always so annoyed. Well, now your sister is dead.
Annie, barely holding herself together, suddenly breaks. And what comes out is not sadness, something that's been living inside of her. Compressed, waiting for exactly this moment to detonate. She tells her son Peter that she never wanted to be his mother, and that she tried to miscarry him several times. That she would have done anything to stop him from being born. Not out of cruelty, but out of terror. Terror of what she might pass on. Terror of what she already knew about herself and her family. And the things that move through them. Toni Collette's performance in this scene is the reason this film exists. She doesn't play grief as a sadness, she plays it as a possession. Something taking over a body that no longer belongs to its owner. The grief of losing Charlie has cracked Annie open, and now everything that was underneath is coming through. Her own inherited damage, her mother's damage, the damage her mother's mother probably handed down before that. And here's the thing. Aster is doing it so precisely. This scene exists before the film goes fully supernatural. And at this point, you could still read Hereditary as a psychological drama about a family destroyed by grief and mental illness. The haunting could still be a metaphor. And Aster wants you there, wants you uncertain, because it makes the question of where grief ends and the possession begins genuinely unanswerable. Is Annie being haunted by her mother's spirit? Or is she just her mother's daughter, running the same program, unable to stop it? The film never fully resolves that. I think that's the point, because in real families, those things aren't always as distinguishable as they may seem. Let's talk about the cult, and specifically about one detail that I think gets overlooked in most readings of this film. Paimon is a male demon, one of the 8 kings of hell in the Ars Goetia, and the cult's entire operation. Ellen's decades of preparation, Charlie's brief existence, the systematic destruction of the Graham family. All of it is in service of giving Paimon a male host, Peter. Now, why does that matter? Because the women in this film, Annie, Charlie, Ellen, are all used. Ellen orchestrates everything but cannot herself be the vessel. Charlie is prepared, cultivated, named after the demon, and shaped into something that was never going to be a full person, and then discarded when the male host is ready. Annie is grief-stricken, gaslit, possessed, and ultimately destroyed. And the men in this movie, Steve and Peter, largely passive. Steve refuses to believe anything supernatural is happening until it kills him. Peter is bewildered and terrified through most of the film, running from something he doesn't understand. Yet the entire machinery of the cult exists to deliver power to him, to install a king. I'm not saying Hereditary is a straightforward feminist allegory. It's too strange and specific for that. But there's a clear-eyed brutality in the way that Aster depicts who gets used and who gets crowned. The women carry the inheritance, they transmit it, suffer it, embody it. And the thing they're transmitting ultimately installed in a man who didn't ask for it and may not even understand what he's received. The final shot of Peter in the treehouse, crowned, surrounded by the cult, is triumphant and horrifying in equal measure. He has inherited everything and earned none of it. He didn't even know it was coming. So, what does Hereditary actually leave us with? On its surface, it's a film about a family being destroyed by a demonic cult. But underneath that, this is where I keep returning, it's a film about things we receive before we have any say in the matter. Mental illness, trauma, family roles, the damage our parents absorbed and couldn't process and passed intact over to us. Annie inherited her mother's illness. Charlie inherited Annie's grief, and before that, her grandmother's agenda. Peter inherited a crown he never wanted from a lineage he never knew he was a part of. None of them chose any of it. None of them could have refused it. And that's what the dollhouse opening is saying. That's what the miniatures are saying. That's what every slow, controlled camera move in this film is saying. You are a figure being positioned. The hand moving you has been at work for longer than you've been alive. What makes Hereditary great, and I mean genuinely great, not just effective, is that it holds the supernatural and the psychological in perfect, uncomfortable tension. You can read this film either way. The demon is real, or the demon is what we call the thing that moves through families and can't be stopped. It wears the face of everyone you've ever loved. Either reading is terrifying, that's the point. There's a shot near the end of the film, just before everything resolves into ritual, crown, and the treehouse, where Peter looks up and he sees his mother on the ceiling. It lasts only a few seconds, but it's the image I keep coming back to. Because in that moment, the horror isn't the demon, it's the mother. It's the inheritance. It's the thing you looked up to as a child, recontextualized into something that will stop you cold. Hereditary asks, what if the people who made you were always, in some sense, doing something to you? What if love and damage and design were the same thing, just at different scales? And I don't really have an answer for that. I don't think Aster does either. But I think that's exactly why this film sticks with you.